Oh, it's 12 o'clock, so I think we should just start. Um, Somebody just asked me, will the slides be shared? Yes, we will. We will email the slides out. We will also email the video out. That might take 1 or 2 days, but you will definitely get it. Request if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. So I will hopefully see them. And introduce myself. I'm Henriette and Ouden. I work as the herb specialist at UMES on the eastern shore of Maryland. I have Stephen Gooey with me who will be answering some of the questions if I miss them. Um, Today we're going to start talking about roots. I have to say I'm from home because of the snow. And it looks very nice outside. I have the risk that there is cats gonna walk over my screen or over my computer, but we'll manage. Before we start, this is a grant funded by the USDA office. And we also get some funds from the state of Maryland. Go to the next, oops. Oh, let me go one back. I'm sorry. This was the original first screen that you should have seen. We go to here. Yes, there was a request from last week because we ran out of time to go quickly over the agenda or the annual planning agenda, which I will do, but very, very quick, spending some time on February, March, and April, because those are very close by. So what I did in this annual planning is the month, the soil. What am I going to do with my soil? Your soil is an ongoing concern and pleasure if it's all going well. When do I plant my seeding? When do I plant my plugs? When do I do my cuttings? When do I harvest? And what am I going to do with the maintenance? So this February is too early, in my opinion, to do a soil test. The soil is still too cold, so you want to do that when snow is gone, but also when it has warmed up just a little bit. Start about seeding in March. Skullcap, self-heal, chamomile. Actually, you can see them this time of the year. You can start seeding your warm requiring herbs, and then you might still have some echinacea or others to harvest. Maintenance, let me get rid of this here. Yeah, February, March is really the last chances that you have to fix your tools, because be aware you're gonna run out of time if you do that later. March, April, I'm just gonna run through this. You all have gotten this if it's good last time. Anybody has any questions, just let me know. You plant your cover crop, you add your compost, you seed your cold direct, you seeds that need to be seeded directly. And when it gets warmer, you start seeding your tropicals. June, July, August, it's all a matter of maintaining and harvesting and drying and selling your products. Also, July, August often is a little bit more quiet time that you should spend time on controlling your tools again. And believe me, this is my own experience. September, you can start seeding the cold, the seeds that require a cold. You can do that anytime between September, October, and November. We're in November. December, invite your helpers. Your helpers are going to be extremely important. Be extremely nice to them. You will depend on them. You might pay them or you don't pay them. Just use the month of Thanksgiving and December to just share something good with them. January, we already had this. Hopefully you all did your repairs. You all started thinking about new tools. You probably already ordered your seeds. February, hope for snow. We got our wish. You can plant as soon as the snow is gone. You can plant your oats. And the same as in March. Start planting your cold needing seeds, and you can still harvest. And this is the time to start finding your the people you're going to depend on during the year. We will when we discuss the different plans, we will also go over these annual planning things. Hang on, I'm sorry for this. That wasn't planned. All right, if you have any questions, put it in the chat, please. Again, the agenda today, but before we start doing that, the photo on the left is the harvest of a ashwagandha plant, ashwagandha root, and you'll see that hole was, I think you can see it, the hole was pretty deep. This was a lot of work. I did this together with Stephen, who's on the call here, and we still talking about it. The roots, though, are fantastic. They're really big and fat, so that was good. Agenda, definitions, roots, and rhizomes. Always a question I get: what's a rhizome? What's a root? Starting a root crop, soil preparation, and then the actual planting and the care. We go over the irrigation, the weed control. We will go over the harvesting a root crop, get into more detail of the photo on the left. We will do the same thing for rhizomes. Then we discuss the difference between annual, biannual, and perennial roots. We have some examples. We talk drying and the market. And I better start working on this because this is a lot of work. Definition, roots, rhizomes, and tubers. And then we have bulbs, which I didn't mention here. Roots anchor the plant. Rhizomes are an extension of the stem. The roots are a different part of the plant, where the rhizomes is just an extension. The stem has been growing on. They store more nutrients than roots, and there's more possibility that they start sprouting new plants from their rhizomes, from the areas where they have nodes. And tubers are basically the same, and all honestly, I don't find it very clear what the difference is. I also don't think it's very, very relevant. Both tubers and rhizomes gather the food in their tubers or rhizomes, where roots transport the nutrients to the plant. The other ones do that too, but they keep more from themselves, which means as a medicinal herb grower, the roots have different kinds of nutrients or different kind of constituents, molecules that you will use for your medicine than the rhizomes. The rhizomes always have more. Remember that we have the secondary and the primary metabolites. The rhizomes have more primary metabolites. They're very often, like burdock, it's a fantastic medicine and it's a very good food, which is a huge advantage because now people can eat their medicine. Where the roots, something needs to be done with the roots in order to have a medicine. Let me see. Bulbs. Bulbs is garlic. Tulips, of course, me being from the Netherlands. Bulbs have a habit of being extremely, they need a lot of feed. They need compost. When you grow, like I do, when you grow a lot of tulips, after you take them out or after they die off, you want to add extra compost to your soil, just for a little side step. Bulbs, of course, garlic are extremely good medicine. Roots examples, rhizomes examples. There's a couple of plants that probably have rhizomes. Like I'm not thinking about passion flower, because their roots are relatively fat and they sprout up anywhere. But apparently we call them roots. Ashwagandha often are called rhizomes, but they really are roots because they do not go horizontal and they do not sprout up in the middle of the root. There's no new plant starting 5 inches deep below the level. Tubers. Tubers are potatoes. Some cold ginger tubers. Sweet flag. Bulbs, tulips, garlic. Massive number of bulbs. Yes, now we get to a point that I personally think the next 3 slides will explain 75% of how to grow roots. It's very important that you understand what kind of root you have. We're not talking about anything else than roots for a while. The first one on the left is a regular.
Hey, Henriette, you're not
Yeah.
sharing your slides. You're not sharing your slides.
Are you kidding me?
No.
I haven't at all.
Not yet.
Are you kidding me? You are screen sharing. You don't
I
see
can
the
see it.
different roots. Huh?
I can see
Oh,
your
wait, I had the wrong tab open. That was my error.
Oh, okay. Thank God. My goodness, you freaked me out here. Oh, I need to take my sweater off and everything now. That's a little slightly panic attack. I'm not very I've started liking doing webinars, but I still have some panic attacks once in a while. I'm sorry for that. Anyhow, so Stephen, you can see the different routes. I guess he does.
That is correct.
Okay, good. Okay, okay, there we go. Let's go back. I'm sorry for this little. Okay, so the left root is a tap root, goes straight down, has little things that go off. This is like what you, when a child makes a drawing, most children, when they make a drawing of a plant, they will make a root like that. Although many will go to the second one, which officially I think is named a cluster root. It's not a tap root. The roots go to different sides. The difference between the two is important when you grow the plants because the ones that go to different sides will require more width when they're growing. The ones that go deep are relatively narrow, especially if we talk about annual taproots. Now, the one on the right is what we all know from echinacea, for instance. It gets little sprouts. I don't know if you can see when I do this. Little sprouts on the top area at the end of the first growing season, in the beginning of the second growing season. And that's important because you can break these and plant the new sprouts separately. It's also important when you harvest them and you have those sprouts on them. Those sprouts are not part of the root, so do not include them in your medicine because it's not the same chemicals as in the root. And the next one, taproot challenges. This is what's happening on the eastern shore at UMES, on the eastern shore at my own farm. We have to deal with a hard pan. This is a really hard level in the soil. It's much worse if you're farming at land that has been farmed for years with big machinery. You buy a 2-acre lot that used to be cornfield, you're going to have a hard pan that sits relatively high. If you have a natural area, like at my farm, a lot of it is natural, has not been grown anything on for the last 40 years. And that was before they got these really heavy machineries. The hard pan is much lower. So if you have different soil types and different past use of your farm, for root crop, find the one where your hard pan is as deep as it probably can be. Your hard pan literally is hard. If even when you start shoveling, you want to dig a hole, you will notice it. It's not necessarily different soil, it's just more compact. And very often it's so compact that the soil has gotten different because the water doesn't go through. So the hard pan will have your roots go horizontal. Sometimes it starts when it right hits the hard pan, and sometimes it already starts much higher. The roots are going to find their water and the nutrients. It's just not going to be able to go through. The one on the right, this little circle thing, that's a challenge you get when you leave your ashwagandha, for instance, when you leave your root crop too long in the pot or the plug where you're growing it. The root will start circling around itself. And then when you plant it, it's having a very hard time to go back and search for the nutrients in the soil. So you don't want to do this. This is one reason why it's such an important slide, because it really explains what you're going to deal with. Everybody is going to do the thing on the right. Everybody is going to hit the hard pen. And hopefully everybody also has circumstances where I can just go straight down. Hopefully. Let me see, there's something in the chat here. Oh, that was Stephen. All right, now we're going to the next slide, effect of water. This is another one that's really important. If you have little water or your water is very deep, your root will be forced to go down. The root has a huge strength to go to where the nutrients are, to go to where the water is. A root has a hard top at the end, relatively hard, that can go through the soil relatively easy up until it hit the hard layer. If you give them very little water, the root will grow deeper and deeper and deeper. If you give it too much water, it kind of gets lazy and it starts growing horizontal. You can see that if you grow ashwagandha in a very wet summer, and even if you don't irrigate it, the roots will not go very deep, they will spread out. The disadvantage of roots that are actually tap roots, but they don't have the possibility to become a real tap root, is they're gonna split up, they're gonna be thinner than what you want to have, which means you have probably the same weight, but if you look at a root, you have the center and you have the bark. If your roots are too thin, you are going to end up with relative more bark than actually a root. In most occasions, what you want to use is the inner part of the root and not the bark. There's exceptions, but yeah. Any questions? So do understand this. You also have, of course, you have marsh plants. The marsh plants will automatically go horizontal. If you plant trees in a wet area, you can see the roots going horizontal. It's the reason why trees in a wet area, they blow over because they don't really hold on to the depth of the soil. Where marshmallow, typical example, a marshmallow root can travel like, in my case, because I didn't harvest them for a while, they go like 10 feet away from where you planted, and they're perfectly healthy. They're happy, they have enough water over there. If that was the ashwagandha, it would not be happy. It would be rotting away. Just keep this in mind. This is really a bit of the essence of growing roots. There you go. The left, we see the panda, and the tree grew deep roots. Now it can weather any storm. It means the tree got everything out of the soil that made it so strong that it now can weather a heavy storm. This is what you're doing, what you want to do with your plants, with your root plants. You want to grow them as strong as you can go. So not so much because then it can weather a storm, no, but then they are as strong as they can be, which means they have all the most medicinal value they can get. Because remember, they develop their medicinal value by defending themselves. That's what you need. So they have grown very strong roots, and now you're going to harvest those roots. All right, practical thing, ensure good drainage. Loose soil, I think we talked about this. One thing, the best way of breaking through that hard pen is through cover crops. Add compost. Compost has particles that will sink into the soil and stay in the soil. You can add sand, but sand will go into the soil and then it will end up much lower than when your roots are growing. It will rain in. So if you want to work with sand, you need to repeat it on a regular basis. I have lavender that we're growing, and every year I add extra sand to the top of the soil, and then I see it rain in, and that works. We only do that because where it's growing is very clay. You normally don't have to do that. Yes, one thing, use of prior year root crop. very, very good idea to grow burdock on one row 1 year. The burdock root is so strong that it very often can break through the hard pan, which means you use the burdock, you harvest the burdock, you sell the burdock at your farmer's market or whatever you're going to do with it. And while you're making money with that plant, it's also preparing your soil for your ashwagandha that you're going to plant there next year that doesn't have the strong roots that can break through that hard pan. Sometimes they do, but not regularly. If you have roots that want to be on the surface, you want to make sure that the surface is moist because they're marsh plant, but not only that, the surface dries out faster than the deep level of the soil. Cover crops. Let me see if I hang in 1 second. I want to move this. Oops. Okay. Cover crops. The one on the left, you'll see the mustard, which looks gorgeous. This is not my farm. I wish it was. It looks like nice gray. The mustard are a really good cover crop to kill bacteria in your soil. Ability for biofumigation. They literally kill fungi and nematodes, which we will talk about more. You want to have cover crop with very long taproots. So you break that pan, you break that soil, so it becomes more loose. And if there is a residue that's left down, it means you have more, your drainage increases because there are more particles in it that don't hold on to the water, but let it go through. One thing is important when you have any of these kind of plants, definitely, absolutely the mustards. You want to till it in before it sets seeds. If you don't, you're gonna have mustard plants the whole rest of the season, up through the fall. So don't let them get out of control, basically. You see on the left, this is a turnip, I think, small turnip. You see how the roots is relative deep. You never think about it when you see a turnip or a radish. You never think that it can have a root that goes up to a yard or 2 yards, even more than that. Yes, this is at UMES. This is the what you call it thing, BCX, what you call it, BCX?
BCS, yep.
BCS, yes. I'm sorry. And actually, Stephen is pushing this thing. So this is a biodegradable ground cover that we put in the BCS. It is a huge tool. It makes it extremely heavy. It's not easy to deal with, but after a couple of tries, you'll be able to do it. It is perfect to lay that biodegradable or any kind of ground cover, but paper. It does not do well with paper. It will tear it apart. I just thought I'd show this because then we can start planting into the biodegradable ground cover. And it saves you an enormous amount of time laying and an enormous amount of time for weeding. The disadvantage is biodegradable. It's not organic. It still has elements of plastics in it, apparently. You also don't know it's made from corn. You don't know what kind of corn is being used. So if you go for organic, do not use this. You can also use paper. We always have used paper. You just roll it out and you dump soil on the side. Be very, very careful that it doesn't blow away. So you want to have sufficient sand or soil on the side. I've also laid paper and I put old pieces of wood on the side, which went very well. You can use mulch or straw. Be very careful with it. It keeps the moist on the surface, but it also keeps the moist at the point where it hits your plant, which can lead to root rot right on the top. So keep it away. Just keep it away. Adding sense temporary solution. This photo here is about the seeding of a root crop. The photo on the left is I started growing a lot of the root crops in boxes, like here. This box is made from an old fence. It's about 6 inches high. You can easily make this yourself from old wood material. The advantage of the wooden boxes is it doesn't dry out that quick, and it's deeper than your regular flat that you can use. If you, as we have seen in that little drawing of the seedling that had been sitting in the pot too long, it started turning around. You will not get it when you have them in a pot like this. You just need to make sure you transplant them when the root starts hitting the bottom of this, which will happen when it already has very visible leaves and it's just ready to be transplanted. I would probably not advise to have every one of them sit in the snow like I did. I also lifted it up because I had a cat that found it interesting. It's probably a good idea when you have cats or raccoons in your area. Under this snow is red sage and meadowsweet and I think St. John's wort. So we'll see how it's gonna do. All right, if you make your own soil, make sure you have the mycorrhizae and the humic acid. The humic acid is very important. It's a mineral that comes from a plant. It stimulates the root growth. The mycorrhizae is the feed or the life element in the soil. If you make your own soil, make sure you add this. Water thoroughly, but not too often. If you water too often, they start rotting. If you don't water enough, they dry out, obviously. But if you just find the right amount of water, you give them a chance to almost dry out, and then you start watering again. In that way, your root will go as deep as it possibly can. Yes, the last sentence, if possible direct seed, so there's no obstruction of growth. We had ashwagandha that was self-seeding. The roots from the self-seeded ashwagandha were thicker and deeper and stronger. I have direct seeded the red sage, much better quality seeds, roots. The problem is a lot of these plants are being attacked by the surrounding weeds. So it's work, you have to clean it. You see, I have some Q&A here. What is the best way to remove the seedlings from the root box? And how much spacing do you need between the seedlings? Yeah, let me answer that here because that's a good question. You want to have seeds in there that you expect that all will be ready to be harvested or to be transplanted at the same time. What I'm doing is a huge gamble. I don't know, in the case of this box, I have done boxes with just one kind of plant in it, which is to be advised. And then you can take your hands and just scoop them out, or you take a little shovel and scoop them out. And then you very carefully divide them if the roots have started growing into each other. And how much spacing do you need between the seedlings, between the seeds? Because they're going through the winter, they will not all emerge. So you want to plant them relatively close to each other. So then you divide them later when they all come up. I do give them mostly the Chinese herbs. I give them at least an inch though. An inch in width and an inch in length. So the rose, whatever. Yeah, I hope that was clear. Let's go. Next slide. People always think about seeding, but there are so many other ways of getting new plants. Here we have this example is one of our students. She took cuttings from the bacopa plant that's growing around her, and she planted them in the oasis. In this case, we did not do this hydroponic. We just put them in the box, put the, what you call the dome on top of it, and put it on a relatively warm spot. Put them in the hoop house, and they did fantastic. You see the roots coming through the oasis. When they are through the oasis, you go plant them. They did not all do, but they most of them did without any rooting powder. It's a very, very easy way of getting new plants. It's much, much easier than the seedlings. Other way, your root crops, they can be split. If you have echinacea, they grow like a big mass of roots, and you can simply take a shovel and cut them in 2 pieces, or 3 or 4, and spread them out. So you can start a new row. If you're in your 3rd year and you're going to harvest these plants this year, you can start your new planting with the middle part of your existing planting. Never damage the main root. Keep the main root in where it is. I have half an hour left. I'm always running out of time. I need to give you less info. Transplanting. Yes, this is a totally free seeding. If you have echinacea, or even at my farm, I had it happening with the Ella campaign. You get the seed flies out and you get new plants. Just know you recognize them and use them to plant them in a new area. When you do transplants like that, make sure you have a weed-free area, because the plants get in a shock. They go into a new area, they kind of crumble, they're not very happy. And then slowly they will start getting used to the new circumstances, and then they start growing. But in the meantime, the little weeds, the grasses, whatever little buggers grow there, they will go and surround the plant and overwhelm it. Perennials in the 2nd or the 3rd year, they form mini plants. I don't know what you call these things, but you will literally get new plants on the top. Bicos Skullcap has done that for me. You can carefully pull them off. They already have a root and leaves, and then replant them. It's the same story as the other transplants. Irrigation, I think we talked a lot out of this. Prevent weeds in the beginning phase. So now we're talking about growing. Make sure airflow can go through the plants. If you plant your plants too close, they get too warm, too moist, and they start developing, or they get more sensitive for fungi. You don't want to do that. Give them air. Even if you probably don't really need it because they all have tap roots, your plants need to be healthy. So give them an airflow going through. Never combine roots with different growing patterns. Always make sure everything in this one line gets harvested at the same time. Get rid of old plant material, because that can attract fungi and root rot. Marshland, ongoing moisture, not irrigated frequently. And this is a trick too. Good looking plants doesn't always mean the roots are optimal for use. It's a very sad situation. You've been growing those things the whole year, and then you harvest them. And I did that with astragalus. I had fantastic plants. I harvest them, and the roots are like minimum size, or the roots can be sick. So what you want to do is you want to do a test in the middle of the growing season, pull one out and see what's going on. Roots pests, same, they are invisible. Most pests are linked to pathogens in the soil. That is why that cover crop is so important. You can use mustard, as we discussed. Sun hemp is a very good antifungal in soil cover crop. I think we had a photo of the sun hemp in the first class. Root rot sometimes is only visible when you cut the roots. Yes, the upper photo. You probably think when you harvest that damage has been done by you harvesting it, but it's not. It's a root. It's a rot that is in the root. Fungi looks the same. That actually is a fungi, but the root rot is like that. But then the root rot is mostly on the top, where the fungi are deeper. the fungi let the bark disappear. It is attracted by the bark of the root. It climbs in the bark and it kills the bark, which means you are having, you get damage to your actual root. The other thing that you often have is nematodes. There are those little bulbs. You need to recognize this because the area where the nematodes are, those pieces are not the right quality for your root crop. So both nematodes, let me explain a little bit more. Nematodes actually are little insects, little worms. I forgot the name, what they actually are, I'm sorry. They stay in the soil. So when you have this at 1 year and you start growing something else or the same thing in that same area, you're going to have the exact same disease. It's not so much with the root rot, not so much with the fungi, because you can treat that by having better drainage the second year. The nematodes, you will get it back every year unless you do something about it. So very important to remember where you had it. And then what you can do is either plant the sun hemp or the mustard or get the soil heated up in the spring. Put a cover on it and just let it heat up. Do we have any questions? I don't think so. Here we are harvesting. Yeah, I'm not too fond about harvesting the root crops in the area where we are, where the school is, because it's very heavy soil. Where we had these red root, we have been growing there for 6 years now, and the soil has really, really improved by the cover crop and by the compost. And it's getting easier and easier every year. So don't give up the first year, just keep on adding, keep on working the land, and it will get easier. People that live more in sandy soils area or lighter loam, they're looking at this and are like, you need a broad fork to dig those things up. I can just shovel them up. Some people, when you're really sandy soil, you can basically pull them out like carrots. Those are the lucky ones. If you want to grow a root crop, you should probably choose an area like that if you have a choice. When you harvest, we use a broad fork. That's that thing I'm standing in. It has 4 needles that go in the soil. You fall backwards and the soil lifts up. It goes much easier if you have more weight than what I have. The taller you are, the better it is, because then your weight pulls it back instead of your force. You harvest them any kind of way. Be very careful you don't damage the root bark. That will deteriorate the value. Spray off, but do not use a hard spray. You do not want to damage the bark of the root. Chinese tradition, a Chinese medicine person will not want you to wash the herbs until they are half dry. It's a cultural thing, and it prevents the damage to the root bark. This is example, yeah. This is turmeric and ginger. The turmeric is the thing on the left, the nice, beautiful yellow. If you grow them, don't expect anything like this. This turmeric that's grown over there is several years old. And it's not my turmeric, it came from an Indian website. So it's warm where that was grown. It's a tropical area. When you grow it here, the best is to grow it in bags like that, or you put them outside when it's really warm. The turmeric, if you want to grow that, plant the rhizomes in January or in February. You can still plant them in March, but you really, really want to put them in as soon as possible. If you're local, I do have some left over. So if you want them, let me know. I can share some of the turmeric rhizomes that we have. The ginger, you can plant them a little bit later. They grow a little bit faster. Rhizomes have a habit to grow, but you won't be able to see it. They are forming their roots. They are growing a little fatter than they were, but they still don't have leaves. The leaves come up later. Save your turmeric rhizomes and plant them again next year because they will not be big enough. I have another Q&A here. Does it help with the potency of the medicinal properties to allow the roots to dry first as well? Yeah, and I don't think so. It's more when you wash them, there's a likelihood that you damage the bark. If you damage the bark, the inside is going to lose its properties a little bit. So I don't think it really makes a lot of difference. The other reason is most of the roots, when you harvest them and dry them, they get extremely hard and you won't be able to cut them anymore. So I hope this helped. Somebody wants their, if you want them, send me an email. If you want the turmerics. The turmeric will come above the soil in about April. You can do them if you don't have a greenhouse, you can put them on a heating pad in the right now, and use deep pots. Don't use the little 2-inch flats. They're not gonna like it. They need to be able to form their roots downwards and sidewards. So a regular pot is the best, or a bag like we do here. I'm sorry, I have trouble with getting forward here. Annual, biannual, triannual, fourth annual, whatever you call them, there are different harvesting times for different herbs. If you leave them in as a rule, the longer you keep them in, the woodier they get. Or they start rotting, or they get hollow. Like I've had elecampane that are left in too long and they started getting hollow. They started forming new roots, but the middle part really was hollow, was nothing, couldn't use. Couple of examples for annual roots. So annual means you either harvest them in the fall of the same year you planted them, or you let them over winter if it's not a tropical plant. So you don't do this with ashwagandha. You can harvest them in the spring when you start seeing the first leaves coming up. If you do teasel, you want to harvest them before they start growing again, because same for burdock. They will set their seeds in the second year, and the seeds are violent. They go everywhere. Biannuals, this means the plants are probably not per definition biannual, but you want to harvest them after the second year or after the third year. It's very often more a cultural thing, which one you do. Chinese herbs, as a rule, second or third year. Echinacea, I think their roots is a little bit bigger after the third year, so you harvest them then. Fourth annual, Astragalus is the only one I could come up with that is a fourth annual. The roots simply are not big enough. We have more questions. It's the same questions. Okay. We go into examples. What time do we have? We have very little time, 15, 17 minutes. Be with me. Echinacea. Echinacea is a great plant, especially for a beginning farmer. It basically cannot go wrong. The only thing that can go wrong with it is if your soil is too wet, they will rot away in the second year. Or if you have too many voles, those little suckers have the habit of pulling down your transplants. You need to do something about them. It's really bad. You plant them on a hill if you have moist clay soil. Plant 1.5 foot distance. You can plant them 1.5, 2 feet distance because they will fill up in between. They form so many new plants. Easy to use a ground cover and plant them in the ground cover. It's the same. The weeds will come in. If you have a ground cover the first 6 weeks, you don't have to worry about weeding them. Then they start getting big enough. And if you look at these there are so many leaves and so few area that the sunlight can go through that you don't have to worry about it. Definitely not in the second and the third year. So use a ground cover that disappears. Do not use one of the thick plastic, because then you miss the advantage of them spreading. They get wider and they spread. Easy to grow, not many diseases. Harvest, fall after 3 years. Best to harvest any root, best to harvest if the soil is slightly dry. I was planning on harvesting the echinacea tomorrow, which obviously is not going to happen because it's snow and it's too wet. Remove soil, pull the plants apart, pull the roots apart so you can really clean them inside. Finish washing, always add 1 extra time washing when you wash them to just be sure it's clean. If you're going to make a tincture, you don't actually have to worry too much about every little particle, because you will filter it out when you press your tincture. Air dry for 1 day before you make a tincture. It's also a good idea to air dry for 1 day and really in a clean area with an airflow over it, because that takes the first wetness of it. Ashwagandha, yes, check out the photo on the top on the left. You see the big fat roots, and you see the more skinny, more split up roots. The big fat roots were the ones that self-seeded. The more skinnier roots were the ones that we planted the seeds. The photo underneath, you see a typical ashwagandha root that grew pretty good. It went pretty much in the depth. It didn't split up too much. The roots are relatively thick. What I'm doing is smelling because it stinks. And based on the smell, you can determine how good is it. The more it stinks, the better it is. Require good drainage. I see what the Q&As are having here. Steven, okay. Why is the butterfly weed? Yes, why is the butterfly weed shown? Butterfly weed is actually also called pleurisy root. It's named pleurisy root because it helps, it supports your lungs. Your pleurisy is your lungs, or pleuris is your lungs. And you use the roots. The first year I had them, I harvested, not the first year, I harvested them the second year. I have not harvested them because they are so pretty, and you don't use much, and I only make it for my own use. Will these slides still be available? Yes. Echinacea. Yeah, I'm not going to answer that question because this is about growing, but it's really an immune support, and you use it into. So I do answer the question. You use them you can use them as a tea, but they work better if you have an extract with alcohol or glycerin. That's it. Ashwagandha, one thing, do not fight the soil to get all the way to the thin tops of the roots. It's not worth it. I consider it a challenge to get the whole root out, but it takes too much time to really do that. Come on, there we go. Ashwagandha. Yeah, this is sadly enough. This is an ashwagandha plant that has flea beetles. Flea beetles are very, very damaging for ashwagandha. If you don't have too many, they will grow out of it. Sometimes it gets a pest like here. You just have a couple of leaves with hole, you're fine. If you get a situation like this, you need to do something. And what you need to do is spray with an organic spray with spinosad. That really works. And repeat it, make sure you spray the top and the bottom. You can buy this stuff at any garden store, good quality garden store, and make your own sprayer. The other thing is you can plant marigolds, grown up marigolds, when you plant your seedlings. The marigolds will limit the flea beetles, or you cover them with insect netting. And then you need to keep that for like 6 weeks and make sure it's totally closed off. I don't like doing that for several reasons, but I also don't like spraying with spinosad, so I don't really know what else you can do. Bicos koolkap is a fantastic Chinese herb. It gets beautiful flowers. It has beautiful roots. The roots are bright yellow. If you want to plant these, make sure you have a buyer for it before you plant these, unless you just like the flowers. It's a very, very specialty crop. It's used for generic immune system. It has some anti-cancer activities, but you're not going to sell it unless you know somebody that wants to buy it. You harvest them after 2 or 3 years. These plants have a tendency to get too woody in the 3rd year. They grow slow, keep weed free. They're easy to grow. They come up, they're cute, they're very easy to grow. They are absolutely gorgeous plants. If you have visitors at your herb farm, it's a perfect plant to add because it will just attract people, and it's a cool plant, and it's a Chinese herb. You read a little bit up. It's a nice story to share. This is red sage, another Chinese herb, also absolutely gorgeous. This one is probably easier to sell because it has more Western use. It's used for any blood issue, high blood pressure. If you sell this to a Chinese herbalist that follows the Chinese practices, they want you to straighten the roots. So in this case, it's extremely important that you plant this only at a location where your roots are actually growing straight. So you really need to have loose soil. I'm gonna go a little quicker through here. Marshmallow, perfect plant if you have children visiting your farm because they love the leaves. They're very, very soft. It's a nice plant. You can use every part in teas. You can do little events and make marshmallows. They're not pink, but they're made from the root. The root can be chopped up in slices, and people can actually eat the slices when they have burning acids when they have stomach problems. It's very sweet. I use it as a sweetener in teas. It's a gorgeous plant. The seeds will need to be planted. They need cold. They're easy to grow if you have a marshland. If you're up in the sand, don't even try it. It's not going to work. Calamus, I added calamus. I love calamus, and I grew up in the Netherlands, and we had this on the side of the creeks and the rivers where we were kayaking and rowing. So I like it. It has a very specific smell. It's a cool plant, same again in marshland. Now this is a tuber and not a rhizome, although some people call this a rhizome too. It's a perfect plant to grow in those areas that you don't really know what to do with because it's too wet. Very nice also to make baskets with the leaves. It's just cool. Black cohorse, we talked about this in the first one. It's a woodland plant. It likes to be with other woodland plants. It likes to be a little elevated, not on zero high, not on sea level. Sadly enough, apparently the deer like them too, so you probably want to have some protection. Make sure when you create beds with this that you have a lot of organic matter in it. So add compost with a high level of organic matter and a very low level of nitrogen. You don't want to feed these plants. They don't need it. And it's a shady plant. They do well in the sun, but the medicinal value is not that good. Burdock, yes, warning, extremely invasive during and after the 2nd year because their seeds are flying everywhere and you get these plants absolutely everywhere. They stick to your clothing. I hate them. So harvest them the 1st year. You can sell them as food. If you sell at a farmer's market, their roots can get like 2 feet long. You can grow them in bags. You can grow them in sewage pipes if you want. The roots will keep on growing and sell them. It's an alternative food, very, very healthy for your gut. So people want it. Astragalus, I think this is the last one, and we have 6 more minutes. Astragalus, if you have sandy soil, please grow astragalus. It's a beautiful, absolutely gorgeous plant. You can see the flowers here. I love it. Seeds are hard. They're not easy. They're not all going to emerge. Requires sandpaper. So you literally break the skin of the seeds. Do not grow weeds in between. They cannot deal with weeds. They will be overgrown. You can direct seed them, which is the best way of doing it, but make sure your topsoil is loose. They hate a hard pan that's too close. They will not do well if they hit the hard pan before they really have their depth. They don't like moisture. This last sentence is an interesting thing you need to realize. Can be sold fresh and dried for about the same price to an herbalist, not to your regular person at the farmer's market. This is sickening for me. You do all this work to dry the plant, to dry the roots, and then the price that you get is exactly the same per ounce. So really, really think about what you're going to do with this plant. Drying in the market, unless you sell to the supplement maker, little demand for fresh and dried roots. They're not easy sold. You need to know what you're going to do with it, who's going to be your buyer, or what are you going to do with it. Roots can be used in teas. Sometimes the water is not the right solution to take out the active ingredients. Like you can make an echinacea tea, but it's not as effective as an echinacea tincture, where you use it on alcohol. Chop your roots when fresh. Just keep that in mind when you have roots. Chop them when they are fresh, because you're going to hate it to do it when they are dry. Be aware that powders and tinctures are considered dietary supplements. So if you want to officially sell this, you have to go through the FDA. This little sentence points out a lot of trouble. Let me go to the Q&A. Oh, yeah, this is still, I don't know, type done. Okay. I don't know what's up with my computer. There we go. Yes, so you're going to get the slides. Move all the way to the end till you have these slides. These slides are like 3 years old. I didn't go through the whole thing to redo it. I will do that later so we get an actual pricing and cost overview of what it really costs. But you can take these different subjects, these different lines, and add the price and the cost and the profit that you make for yourself. What you see on average for all the roots, you make about $300 on the roots that you grow. Your cost is around 90. This is kind of the average. So on 100 feet, on a 50 feet long row, you make about 210, and currently it will be more because the value of the root crops have gone up. So you make about $250 for a 50-foot row while you're paying your people that are working. I have one more like that. No, I left it out. So what you want to do is make your teas if you really want to have the profit. As soon as you start making an added value product, your gain goes up. It's worth the cost compared to the sales price. All right, I think I made it at time. I'm sorry I rushed a little bit through the end. I hope you don't mind. I didn't want to get started with something from this time. We will have another class, another webinar. Oops, in 2 weeks, I believe. We will let you know. We will also send you out a new link. We will send you out the video of this one, and we will send you out the slides of this one. I will do the slides tomorrow morning. Any question you have, please shoot me an email. Shoot me an email. Here's my frog. Here's my email and my phone number. So either give me a call or shoot me an email and I will answer. If you want your turmerics, send me an email and come and pick it up. that's about it. There's one Q&A. Is there anything that's still the same question? I've learned so much. Thank you for the compliment. I'm always always in for compliments. So thank you very much. We need to keep myself motivated here. Thank you all for joining us, and I hope to see you in 2 weeks.
February 26th.
All right, we can end the slides. Stop share. Thank you, Kamla.
Yeah, welcome.